Hello and welcome to the RESILIFE Tea Talk. We have talked in the past, we have been referring to mental health, Black Lives Matter, the LGTB plus community, also about the climate change and the environment, gender. We also talk about body positivity, how to stay active during lockdown, and a lot of other topics, and we'll still some more to come. Today, we are going to be talking about volunteer work. And for that, we have a lovely panel of speakers. And they are going to be sharing with us their experiences, also maybe the places they have been doing volunteer work, if they have been doing any fundraising. And a lot of people, a lot of students, they really want to know how to get started in this work. Like I always mention, for people that are on Instagram Live or on Zoom, you are able to ask questions in any moment. You can ask questions either on the chat of Zoom, or if you want, you can unmute yourself and raise your hand and ask your question, or it can be a question, an opinion, or a comment as well. On Instagram Live, you can type down your question and I will read it out loud. And if you're seeing this from YouTube after, some of the speakers will leave their Instagrams or websites or the names of the charities they're working on, so you can also contact them in the future. Just a message before we start. Some of you might have heard that something happened in Lebanon. In the capital of Lebanon, in Beirut, there was an explosion a couple of hours ago. The information that I know is that there was an explosion of a factory of explosives. So it was a very, very bad explosion that affected a big part of the city. And there's not a lot of information about casualties or people injured, but there are a lot of people trying to help everyone that got affected. So the first thing that I want to say, that if you are a student of King's, that you feel affected in any way and you feel that you need support, you can contact your faculty. You can explain what's happening to you. If you're in the residences, you can also contact us. You can contact me on this Instagram as well. And we are here to help you in any emotional support that you need, of course, because this is something that is very, very awful. And I really hope that they receive the help that they need on time. And talking about help, some of the things that may start wondering a person, why do I want to do volunteer work, are situations like this. Are situations that we don't actually know how did it happen, how long it's going to take for people to build their lives again, but you just feel the urge to help and you feel the urge to say, I need to do something. And that's one of the questions that sometimes people have when they start volunteer work. What can I do to help? I need to do something. I can just not stay looking at the news 24/7. I need to be there. Another of the moments that we ask ourselves that question is when we experience natural disasters. And I don't know about you, but in Chile, that is the place where I come from, there are so many natural disasters that we have that in our minds most of the time. So I have been volunteering with earthquakes, with fires, with floods, and that's something that also triggers the willing to help, but sometimes you just have questions and you don't know what to do. Other things had to do with Corona. A lot of people were volunteering in the front line, even helping maybe neighbors with the groceries, helping to carry medicines, helping doing online free therapy, etc., etc. So those are the kind of moments that we can be feeling we need to do something. There are also more quiet moments when you're just reflecting what you want to do with your life and you feel, I do need to do something about this. And for all of that, we have our lovely speakers here with you. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, of course. We are going to be starting with you, Maddie. If you can tell us a little bit of who you are and what are you going to be talking with us today.
Hi, my name's Maddie. I'm from London, but currently in France. I work with the British Red Cross, and I'll be talking a little bit about Mars Refugees, which is our virtual fundraising event.
Excellent. Thanks. Thank you, Maddie. I'm very excited about that. I really want to hear more about how to participate. Then we have Diego.
Hi, I'm Diego. I'm originally from Brazil, but currently I live in Finland, where I was working for the organization that I will talk about, ISEC. And yeah, I hope you enjoy knowing more about what the organization does and how it can contribute to you and to the world.
Thank you. And also for people that don't know, ISEC is an organization that is also present in King's College London. So if after Diego's talk you really want to take part, there is actually a society in King's. Then we have Catherine.
Hi everyone, my name's Catherine. I'm from Buckinghamshire, and I've just finished my bachelor's degree in Coventry. And today I'm going to be talking about volunteering within the NHS mainly, and doing different sort of hospital roles in the NHS.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What did you study, Catherine?
I studied BSc psychology, and I'm starting a master's in September.
Good luck with your master's then.
Thank you. I'm going to need it.
Then we have Emer.
Hi everyone, I'm Emer and I'm based in Ireland at the moment, but I'm actually moving over to the UK at the end of September to start a job as an assistant psychologist, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the different volunteer experiences I've had in the last few years.
Excellent, thank you so much. We do have also a fifth speaker. Her name is Maya. She couldn't be present today because she is very busy doing a lot of things. She will tell you a little bit more in the video that we pre-made. And she's going to be talking about how can you start, for example, fundraising. If you have an initiative, you have an idea in your mind and you say, I do want to help, maybe as an individual, what can I do? So she's going to talk a little bit about that. Just remember, reminding everyone that every speaker will have around 20 minutes to speak, but of course, everybody is welcome to ask questions, comments, and you can do that on the chat, or you can also mute yourself or ask on Instagram Live. So we are going to start with you, Maddie. It's your moment to explain about the campaign you were mentioning.
Yep, so Miles Refugees is our flagship fundraising event at the British Red Cross, and it's a virtual fundraising event. The idea behind it is that when you register for £10 and you have 6 distances to choose from, and these distances reflect a journey that a refugee may have to take to reach safety. You have the month of September to collect these miles to add up to the distance. So for example, one of the lowest distance is 22 miles, which is the English Channel. So you can run, cycle, swim, walk, even yoga if you really want to collect these miles over September. And you have a fundraising page which is set up for you when you register. You can collect your miles on here through a fitness device like Strava, or manually if you want to. And you have a fundraising target of £150. All the money raised will go to our UK refugee work. So it will go to support things like supporting our refugees in destitution centres, from health packs to either care products and to sanitation products, or maybe to some of our UK youth refugee work, like our Surviving to Thriving project, which really helps young refugees kind of settle into communities in the UK, learn about how to apply for jobs, universities and things like that, to kind of give them a step forward into life. And maybe instead of thinking about the journeys that they've taken to reach to safety, think about how they can start to rebuild their lives and move forward. So Miles Refugees has kind of built over the last 4 years, and this year we're hoping to have 5,000 take part across the UK. It's a really exciting campaign to be part of. You might have seen some of our Facebook ads that are going live at the moment, and Instagram ads. We've had really great kind of positive feedback from them. So yeah, we're really hoping that this year kind of will take off, even though this year obviously is a bit challenging with COVID and everything. Fundraising might not be the forefront of everyone's kind of thought, and they'll be like, I need to, think about myself, and that's completely fine. Like, we totally understand that, and we almost like estimated and predicted that was going to be like that this year. But if you do see the ads and you think, I can't sign up to this isn't really kind of what I'm feeling, just show it some love anyway, just give it a like or something like that. So we do appreciate that also. So that's a little bit about Miles Refugees and what it's all about. And anyone can take part. It's really open to anyone. As I said, it's a £10 to register, and then we ask that you fundraise £150 over September, but there's no like you don't have to reach that target. We just give it to you as like something to aim for, but if you don't reach it, that's completely fine. You do really feel a sense of community when you take part. There's lots of people taking part. You can see the hashtag on Instagram and all that cool stuff. Use your stickers. So yeah, you do feel like you're part of something bigger and a bigger movement, and you're supporting like our UK refugee work. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I'm open to questions now.
I definitely have seen the Instagram post as well.
Yep.
And I think it really caught my attention, like that the miles that you're running have to do with the distance that some people have to walk or sail, and all these terrible journeys that they have to come with a lot of uncertainty as well. And that motivated me to think, yeah, I think I can do it. I can walk. Or it's also the option, if you're self-isolating, it can be in your own room. You can move here. You can walk up the stairs. It's an option. And I think I really wanted to ask you, how did you enter that this campaign? Is this the first time that you're working with the Red Cross? How did you, Maddie, feel, you know what, I really need to be part of this, not only participating, but also part of the team that is organizing this?
Yes, so I was studying at university, and I did international development and geography, and that's always been an interest for me, but it wasn't necessarily I was thinking of working for an organization like the Red Cross or a charity, but I took part in a challenge event in my last year of university. I climbed Kilimanjaro, which I'm sure lots of students very familiar with kind of those types of challenges and fundraising, and I loved it and I really got involved. And from there there was a role at the Red Cross, which was an events officer role, I think, which was supporting people doing these types of challenge events. So I applied and I got it, which was really exciting. And then from there I've supported kind of scaling up virtual fundraising events, and this is what I do at the Red Cross at the moment. So it's very much kind of my experience and what it's led to, but using my degree to understand kind of what the Red Cross does, why they do it, and where they work also helps. So that's how I got into the role that I'm in today.
What does it mean to you? What did it mean to you when they said, yes, we want you to be part of our team? That is something that I think everyone has heard at least once about the Red Cross.
Yeah, it was really exciting. It was my first time. I previously was working at a much smaller organization, so it was quite daunting kind of making that transition to a much bigger organization that also had quite a big reputation. But yeah, super exciting, and I was very happy to hear the phone call that I was successful. But when I first started, lots of things over my mind. I was like, it's the whole thing, am I good enough? Am I really going to be doing this? But they were so friendly and warm and welcoming, and also they gave you the ability to be like, this is your space, this is your time to make it what you want to. Even in the more junior role that I had, they gave me the opportunity to do that. So I really felt that I could make the role my own, and even the event now, Mars Refugee, is my own, even though it was previously managed by someone else. So it's been a really great experience so far working for them.
Yeah, it feels like a very nice environment in the sense that you are in a community, but you also have autonomy to maybe put your own muddiness. I don't know how else to call it.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how did you end up being in charge of Miles for Refugees? Was that something that you choose? They give you options. Why refugees?
Okay, so Miles Refugees was our first ever virtual event that we pushed out. In the fundraising and charity sector, virtuals are a thing that are coming up and creeping up in lots of, especially at the moment with COVID, fundraisers are looking to turn kind of actual life events to virtual events. But a couple of years ago, we realized that we really needed an event at the Red Cross that was virtual, because this was a sector or like an area that was taking off. There was a secondment opportunity to basically come and manage Mars for Refugees, and I applied for the secondment and I got it, which was amazing. And then since then they saw that I was able to kind of take the event to a new scale, to a new level, and they offered me a role that is to manage the event. The refugee part of it was really exciting, because normally you tend to work on all different parts of the fundraiser for the Red Cross. So you could be working with mobility aid, you could be then working with some of our overseas work, and then our first aid work. Really kind of, if there was a need to fund something, you'll be there to like, yes, let's kind of get the funds there. With Miles for Refugees, it was very different. It was very specific, and for the last 2 years I've been working on and supporting kind of our refugee services and our UK refugee services in it. So it's been really exciting to learn a lot more about what they do, kind of the issues that refugees and asylum seekers face when they arrive in the UK, and some of the horrific journeys they have to take to reach safety.
I don't know if you could share with us some of the stories that maybe refugees have told you.
Yes, trying to think of one in particular. If you take part in Miles Refugees, there'll be a couple of stories shared. Actually, we've been trying to use the voices of our refugees and asylum seekers to tell their stories rather than the Red Cross this year, which has been really exciting. And one boy in particular who works for, or he's now part of our Surviving program, which is an amazing program. He came over to the UK when he was 16 after a really difficult journey from Kenya, and when he arrived had no family, and he didn't know really where to go, but he got told to come to speak to the Red Cross and find the Red Cross. He eventually did and got put onto this program, and what's really exciting now is that he's going to university to study sports science, and he's going to be an ambassador for Miles Refugees this year. And he does say honestly that he was like, I don't know what he would have done without the Red Cross, which is really exciting. We often hear stories also about kind of maybe kind of male figures coming over first and then trying to settle in, and then the difficult journeys that, or the difficult challenges of bringing or getting back in contact with their families. It's honestly horrific, like years and years of them trying to go through the family reunion process, and you really do need kind of experts like the Red Cross or even solicitors, which, you know, often come with huge costs, to help reunite families together. Sometimes can, you know, when we do talk about our work, can come across quite controversial, but the Red Cross really does it in a way that shows that families do belong together, which is really special. And the stories that they tell through kind of our refugees and asylum seekers, they do it in such, I think, a really great way that shows the human element, that these people are human first. And I think it's really easy to forget that when you're kind of thinking about all of the things that are going on in the world. So there's some really great stories, and they will be shared throughout the journey, but those are a couple of things that I think are really special by the Red Cross.
I was thinking that the talk that we had last week was about the different types of families.
Oh, nice.
And when we are thinking about refugees or asylum seekers or people that are exiled from the country, sometimes that is part of the journey as well. Sometimes they do need to, one come first, the other one come second. Sometimes they don't come at all. And the part of how the family tries to move, it's not just you, it's your family, and your family can be your extended family as well. And we're talking, of course, like different cultures, so all the things are different in the sense of who do I consider my family. But that's a very important part, that they need to adjust to so many changes. And one of the changes sometimes is that they are left on their own, especially if they're kids. I also like when you mentioned that even though the Red Cross is giving this platform, that also the idea is to have the voice of the refugees as well. Because something that sometimes can be seen of the volunteer organizations or NGOs or charities is that there is someone that is somehow distant from the experience, or in some cases, and they took over, or they take over. So sometimes there is this dilemma of, okay, I'm supporting you, but I'm not telling you what to do because I'm not you.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to use their voices, because they are the ones actually experiencing that. They are the ones that know firsthand maybe what kind of help the Red Cross can provide, what kinds of things are the limitants of that help as well. I think it's very important, because the Red Cross is helping, but the idea is that the refugees are the center of that. It's not the Red Cross. It's in this campaign, it's the refugees. And unfortunately, in the world, we have so many different problems between wars, natural disasters, and earth, that people need to move. And now with the corona, that's even harder, because you also are putting yourself at a double or triple risk, because there's also this risk of having the virus as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have, when you mentioned, for example, what the Red Cross has been able to help, if you can think in anything concretely, like for example, with the campaign that you are doing now in September, what kinds of things or what kind of goals are you wanting to achieve with the refugees in particular?
It can be quite challenging because when the funds come in from Mars refugees, we then look at, well, I personally don't, but our refugee services then look at like where we need it the most. So for example, in 2018, there was, for our Surviving to Thriving project, it was going like taking off, and we were getting lots of interest from especially young men refugees coming, but there wasn't the interest from women, and I don't know why exactly that kind of happened, but they were thinking maybe they didn't feel comfortable in the space or something. So what they did is they hired someone to come into the Red Cross and be like, we want to really make sure that we bring in women into this space, or make sure that we have something set up for them that they can feel they can be part of this kind of young refugee network. So that's what part of the funds raised from Mars refugees in 2018 was able to do. And taking that forward, it was quite interesting actually. What they found was they found it really challenging to kind of enable this space that young women refugees could come into and feel safe and talk about kind of their issues and come back week on week, and gain from kind of the work they've been doing. Since lockdown, they've realized that more kind of young women are coming forward and I feel more comfortable in this more virtual space. So kind of going back round to your question, even though I can't tell you exactly what are the funds raised from this year's event can do, I know that in 2018 what we were able to do is kind of put together a role that maybe it didn't work straight away, but over the years the funds from Miles have able to be like, okay, we can shape this role into this to enable more younger female refugees to get support from our work, which has been really cool. And especially this year we've kind of seen it take off in a whole new way, which is interesting. So unfortunately we won't know until kind of the event is over, but we can tell you kind of roughly where it might go, if it's going to young refugee work, or it could be spent on some of our destitution centres, which are amazing. They support mainly people seeking asylum who get destitute. Going through that process of asylum seeking to refugees can be quite challenging, and some people are left destitute and homeless, and it's a place where people can leave their luggage, or they can come for the day or during the day to get food and things like that, and also just give them a sense of community, which I think is really important during those really rough times. So it could just be funding kind of either part of that, or maybe some of the kind of the hygiene packs that come with that, the food rolls, just lots of different things, but unfortunately I can't tell you exactly what, but in previous years there are some examples.
You will have the suspense then.
Yeah, you have the suspense, but we normally let people who take part, we tend to let them know after the events take kind of completed, and we give them an update on how things are going, so it's just really nice and transparent.
I also wanted to point out when you mentioned that refugees are humans first, and how that also means that they're all different, that not because the name that is used in this case is refugee, that means one refugee is the same as another refugee. And that also happens when we are thinking about gender, and we also had a talk about gender, so that's why I was thinking about it, that sometimes some things or some strategies work with some people, but they don't work with others. And I think it's very important what you were saying, that to reflect on what's happening here. Are we not having the best approach? Or maybe we are not offering something that they need, or maybe they're afraid and there is something there that if they contact us, they are in danger. So there's a lot of things that go into the process, because when I'm just thinking about the role that you have, because when we're thinking, okay, I'm going to fundraise for Mice for Refugees, so I'm doing one part. This is one of the roles that I can have. One of the roles is I'm going to run, in my case, I use a mask, and raise some money for this. But then the money is put into an organization that has to do something with it. And in that is also the thought of, is this going to be helpful? How do we do it? Do we have a meeting with them? But what happens if not all the members are represented? So it's like something that takes more than just, okay, I have the money, what do I do with this? So I think it's very important, all the process that you're describing, because when you are the receptor of those fundings, you need to think about the cultural differences, how not to patronize people and work with them, the gender, the age differences. Are they in danger if they ask for help? For example, just to give an example, when there are some charities working with women that are in risk of domestic violence, if they reach to them, that put them in danger. So there's a lot of factors to cover. And like Freya mentioned, we only have like 1 or 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to know if you have any last comments, or if you can repeat what Miles for Refugees is and how can you participate, for example.
Yeah. So you can take part by going to or sign up at our website, which is miles.redcross.org.uk. And you can just follow the steps to sign up there. I think I absolutely love all the points that you've mentioned. And I think it's really easy as people, especially as fundraisers and people that make the donations, as like donors, to say what you expect the donations to go to. And you need to take a step back and realize you're not the person receiving them, and you shouldn't necessarily be like, I'm giving this £10 to go here because I think this is what that person needs. And you should be like, no, this £10 should go to where it's best placed and best needed. And organisations like the Red Cross were able to, work with communities who need the funds and people who need the money, and be like, we try to say like, it's okay if there's a specific bar of soap that you want, or something like that, or there's a certain, I don't know, food that it hasn't been working for you that you would like in community. I think it's really important that those voices are heard, as you've mentioned, and I think it's really important to be like, it's okay that I almost like trust the organisation where the money's going to be put best, rather than thinking like, oh, that person needs, I don't know, some new shoes, when they're like, no, my shoes are fine, but actually what I really need is, I don't know, a mobile top up. This is what we often get from our younger refugees. They're like, no, I'm actually okay for for food and shelter and things like that, but what I need is a mobile phone, and I need data. I want to apply for things. I want to be connected to my families. So all things like that we have the knowledge on. But yeah, so Mars Refugees this year, if you want to sign up, you can sign up at mars.redcross.org.uk. And yeah, we'd love to, and many people to join us on this journey this year. And it'd be great to have you on board.
Do you have any Instagram also to share with people?
Yes, we have. Well, we have that British Red Cross one, which you can have a look at. And I'm sure they'll be posting about Mars Refugees on there. And then throughout September, you can use the hashtag Mars Refugees, or just search that, and you can see lots of people taking photos out, lots of times with pets, which is quite fun. Just out and about collecting the Mars in lots of different ways. So if you want to have a search on there, you can find people previously taking part, and I'm sure that you can see stuff with people training this year also.
And you can, just one thing that I remember, you can participate by yourself or as a group or something like that as well.
Exactly, yeah. You can take part as an individual, or if there's a group of you that are like, yeah, let's get together and do that, that's totally fine. It's really easy to set up a team page. We just ask that when you sign up, you kind of choose that individual targets that you sign up. So those 6 distances that you can choose from, that target will be your goal. But at whatever point you want to kind of change that target, that's completely fine also. So yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing all of this with us. Like I mentioned, this was a campaign that I was very drawn to since I saw it on Instagram. I think I will try to do it, and it also will motivate me to stay active during lockdown, or in this case the lockdown is out in London, but still. I was wondering if any of the other speakers or people that are present have any questions for Maddie. If you don't have any questions now and you have a question in the future, you can also ask her. Yeah, and I have one question here for you, Maddie. The question is, why, or maybe not why, but what makes you feel connected to the refugee cause? Like, why refugees and not another thing?
That's really interesting. So there's lots of parts of the work that we do at the Red Cross that I really feel connected to. What draws me most about the refugees is the human aspect of it. These people, they're not refugees by choice. They're not, the reason why they left their homes is not for, not because they wanted to, it's because they have to. And often we hear like horrific stories of how they're treated and how the journeys that they go through. And I just really think it's necessary to realize that these people are humans at the end of the day. They're arriving in new places, like not even knowing where they've arrived. The journeys that they've gone on are horrific, and I think it just showed a little bit of compassion and kindness to them in any way possible, to say like, I understand, not even I understand, it's like I'm here to support. So that's kind of what draws me, is that it's really easy to forget and kind of demonize them a little bit through society, and I just really don't think it's fair or kind. So just remember, they're humans, they've gone through these horrible journeys, and they're not refugees by choice.
Thank you for that. And I was like, if anybody here is speaking that you're an international student in King's, that we, of course, is not at all the same experience, but if we sometimes feel homesick, or that we can adapt to the food or to the weather, or to being away from home, or to having people that don't understand who you are, or maybe your status has changed. In the case of a refugee, that's not even an option. So imagine you are forced to come to here with no accommodation, with no papers, with no studies, with no warranty of anything. So the pressure that they have is unimaginable. And we experience like this portion of that when we feel we are homesick, because being away from home is hard. Being away from your culture and your family and your friends is hard. And in this case, you don't even have sometimes home to come back to. So it's something so important to also recognize in this journey. And if we can do some miles for them, then I think that's the least that we can do.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of experienced it a tiny bit, the whole thing of homesick during lockdown, when we haven't been able to see our families. And that, I think for one time, I haven't seen my mum in, I don't know how long, like 6 months. And I was like, I can't believe that I'm feeling like this. How do people who haven't seen their families, or may never see their families again, must feel like? So yeah, I think that really kind of hit home to me during kind of lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
That's okay.
You're welcome to stay the whole talk. And if you have any questions or comments for the other speakers,
Thank you so much.
We have Diego now coming next. Are you with us, Diego?
Yes, I would just like to make a comment, because we have some of our volunteers here in Finland. They are refugees in the country, and the reason why they joined the organization is because they feel a disconnection and they want to be part of something. And so far, all of them, when we have activities and we have to talk about the world that you want to live in and the place where you want to live in, they always share that they would like to go back to their countries. They don't want to be here, like they have to be. And the moment that you deny them a place to be twice, by making them leave their homes and then by not accepting them just because they're different, it puts a toll on them that it just damages these people. They are humans, and the moment that we have these, I really don't like the words refugee and expat and so on, because it creates this sensation of me and them that I quite abominish. So yeah, I would just like to make this comment. So thank you so much, Maddie, for talking about this and to run this kind of volunteer work. That's really nice. So yeah, I'm Diego. I'm from Brazil. I'm here in Finland for the past 2 years. I came here to work for an organization called ISEC. We are the largest youth-led organization in the world right now. We are present in around 120 countries and territories. We have many different people. We are never rejecting anybody. Everybody is welcome to join and try to do something. And the reason why we are together is because we are fighting for peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential. So the organization was created after the Second World War, and 7 countries, they just got together and they decided that they would do professional exchanges between these countries to help people to understand one another. And this escalated in a global level. We are still working with professional exchanges, but we are also now doing volunteering experiences all over the world and wherever we have operations. So nowadays we work together with the UN to support the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and we have many different projects. And this is the thing that I find truly amazing about ISEC, is because we are connected with something bigger, and there's space for everybody to run a project of their own passion and intention. So I have some friends who were fighting for gender equality, so they created projects in their own countries, in their own cities, and this is really nice. This is super amazing and exciting. Um, I met Franny when she went to my city long time ago, when I had first joined, around 5 years ago. And because we started talking, I started learning Spanish. So this connection brought something else. So it's this mix of people, this mix of culture that brings the best inside of us. So for ISEC, we try to bring youth together. We give them voice and we empower them. We develop leadership in them by putting them in very challenging situation, things that they would usually not go through at that early point in their lives. And this is how they end up developing four main qualities, which we call leadership qualities, which is being solution oriented, being a world citizen, being self-aware, and being capable of empowering other people. So out of these four, I it's very hard to pick one, but self-awareness is one that I love the most. ISEC really helps you to find who you are and what you want to fight for in life. Um, I cannot be more grateful for ISEC in my life. If I am at the place that I am, if I visited all of the countries that I visited, it's because ISEC gave me this opportunity. Yeah, this is mostly it about the organization.
I think it was very exciting for me as well when I met ISEC. The instant connection that you have with people from around the world, and like you mean, it has to do with young people as well, because sometimes we are told that you need to be a professional first, or you need to have a career first, and then you can have an actual impact. Like, yeah, you can clean something, but that's not going to have a global impact. And I think with ISEC, because it's directed by young people as well, it has that within it, that you don't need somebody that knows better most than you. It has to do with your own power. And I also love when you mentioned that a lot of the people, yeah, you met during all these years were fighting for something. And my question is, what was your flag of fight? What were you fighting for when you were in ISEC?
I am very passionate about people's development. So if I'm going to talk about the SDGs, it's quality education. I believe that education is the key for everything. But what I'm truly passionate is seeing people grow and achieving their own dreams. So all of the people that have worked with me, I try to see what they're up to and how I can support them in any different way possible. Um, it is really beautiful when you see that person when they first started in the organization and you're working with them and you see them struggling with some tasks, and then you see them 2 years later or even a semester later, because it's already a lot of time inside of ISEC, and they are way more capable, they are more confident, they are more sure of what they want to do with their lives and about the topics that they're talking about. So this really excites me, and that was the moment that I understood that I wanted to work with HR. So now that I'm done with ISEC, I finished my term here in Finland as president of ISEC in Finland 3 days ago. I'm going back to Brazil, and this is what I want to work with. I started an MBA in people management. So yeah, I can definitely say that I am a product of ISEC. Everything that I'm saying here that ISEC does to you, it did to me, and this is why I talk so passionately about it.
So you feel that with ISEC, maybe this wouldn't be your career path now?
For sure not. I was thinking about it before, and I was very conformed with the situation because I come from a small city in Brazil. It's the capital of the smallest state, and when you look around, you see people doing the same things. They're going to be engineers, doctors, or lawyers, and this is success to people. And that was not what I wanted to do. And I always felt that I was in the wrong place, and that I wanted to do more, that I wanted to achieve more, that I wanted to see more. But you don't see people from your reality doing that. And the moment that I met some volunteers from all over the world, and that I understood that, hey, life can be different, and look at these people doing these amazing things. When I met people from the national office in Brazil, I saw young people. They were younger than me. I was 24 at the time, and there were some 22, 21-year-old girls leading a movement, leading a whole entity. For me, that was, wow, I can do that. If they can, I can also do it. So they empowered me. Like, if I didn't meet these people, I would have probably stayed in the same place. I would be like successful by other people's standards, not by mine, you know. So Isaac was important for this.
Connecting with what Maddie was saying in a bit, it sounds like if you feel like you're in the wrong place, like I don't find myself here, I don't find my identity or my home, that ISEC or any other charity, but that means can be part of your home, can make you feel you belong to something. And sometimes when we have that secure base, we feel now I can do things. Now I have a support net. Now I can say something that I want to do, and other people will say, yes, we are going to collaborate with you. And it feels like you have that power that you didn't have in the beginning. And it's just having more people that think that they can do a change.
Yeah. When I think about volunteer work, I think about connection and togetherness outside of your comfort zone. Usually, it's not something that you would normally do or that people would normally do. It's something that will challenge you for sure. Like you need to go through a lot of obstacles to sometimes even be able to offer some assistance to other people. And with ISEC, I feel that I found home because we put together, imagine the biggest conference that we have in ISEC is for around 600 people from 120 nationalities, people that I would never meet in my entire life, from nationalities that I barely heard of, you know. And then I can meet these people and ask them, how is life in your country and how are things done over there? And for me, these connections, they are so strong. I know that I've learned a lot with different people, and that I probably have triggered in them some other ideas that will replicate, you know. And it has this, is that it has this effect that just keeps spreading all over. So yeah, you find a place where people are going to have very similar values to yours, because imagine that you are, no matter what kind of volunteer work you're going to do, you're going to meet people that have similar interests, people that wants to work for the same cause. So it's really good. It goes from I'm alone here at the end of the world and I want to change things, but I'm by myself. And then you see that there's a group of people over there that they're gathering and saying, hey, we are going to make this change. Do you want to tag along? So this is very powerful. It really pulls people inside of the organization and pushes them to the world in a way that they will create more impact.
I think that's a very, very important aspect of ISEC in particular. And I was remember a conversation, a man, so he's a Black man and he's been living in Japan for a lot of years. And he was talking about racism. And he said that he had a conversation with a Japanese woman that was like 70. And she said that he was the first Black person that she ever spoke to. And I think with ISEC, you sometimes don't even realize, but you are talking to someone that, I remember in my case, I have never met anybody from Turkey, from Egypt, from, I don't know, there were people from Czech Republic as well. And some people spend their whole lives and they have never talked to difference, if you can put it that way. Before, of course, we didn't have this globality and it was not that easy, but now that it's possible, still a lot of people have never talked to somebody that's different to them. And that includes gender, that includes racism that includes the LGBTQ plus community as well. When you feel maybe we won't have anything in common. And I think in IASEC, you see that there's a lot of people there with different interests, with the same willingness to be part of something. And they can be from different races, from different ages, because even though the whole thing is for youth, you do have contact with other people that are sometimes older or kids as well, because some of the volunteer work I remember was to work with elderly or was to work with kids, people with disabilities. Like there's a lot of things that they cover just by being a society.
Yeah, and it is really beautiful because I had the opportunity to meet very different people, and I had opportunities to have very deep conversations without even speaking the language of the country. So in Romania, this is also quite extreme and different. I was sharing the room with a Tunisian um, and a Moroccan, and they spoke only French, and of course their national languages, but not English at all. And they were going through Ramadan, and they were telling me that they are not terrorists. And I remember them telling me this, like, we are Muslims, we're not terrorists. And they would tell me this constantly. And for me, it was very shocking to see that and to hear that, because I've never thought about it. I was just thinking, I don't think that they are not terrorists. But what about other people? And how do they treat them? What are the struggles that they go every single day? And from that talk onwards, now I want people to know that Muslims, they are not terrorists, you know. So these things, they make us more human, and they make us develop an empathy that goes beyond our inner circle. It's funny because I've also heard the same thing that this man you were talking about when I was in Poland. I've met one of my students' friend, and she told me, "You're the first black person that I meet." So she had very interesting questions, um, and you could see that this is a person that wants to learn. But this is not always the case, right? Um, so it's better for people to learn and to listen to these things from someone that is around them. So if you bring a person, like you bring a woman to a poor community in South America, let's say, and this woman is telling them how important it is for them to be more empowered, and they help them without judgment on how they can improve little by little. You make a small difference, and then these women, they're going to raise their daughters in a different way. They're going to raise their boys in a different way. So it just multiplies. I'm really sad. I'm really sad right now that I'm done with the organization. Now I feel this part of what is the next step, and how can I still stay connected, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you said also, that even if you are not working with them like actively, ISEC is still part of your life, and it has opened so many doors, not only like with people, but in your mind as well, of who you are, who you can be, how you can impact people. And I wanted to ask you if you want to tell us, you mentioned that there's a lot of challenges when you are in ISEC, and I know that you have been in a lot of roles. You were first one of the new members, then part of the committee, then you went abroad, then you do some volunteer work as well, then you were part of the organization, and you end up in Finland. So I was wondering if you can share with us one challenge that you remember that you, because of being in ISEC, you had to experience, and what did you learn from that?
I'll talk about the recent situation with the pandemic, because for me it was the biggest challenge that I had to manage. I was in the office in that day. I had some of my I had one team member in Turkey. I had some of the local volunteers in Turkey as well. Um, and we also had people volunteering here in Finland. I was in the office, and I got the news that they were going to shut down the borders, that Turkey was closing the borders, that many countries in Europe, they were closing borders. And I had to really move fast. and make very precise decisions while trying to keep people calm and not panicking myself. So that was a very challenging situation. I believe that everybody in ISAC at that point, they all deserve an award for surviving this crisis. It was very tough. Um, but I got in touch with them. I made sure that no matter how much money they would need, we would try to cover everything as long as they were safe. I issued an official statement just to make sure that the families here that were in contact with our volunteers, they were safe, that the schools, the governmental institutions that we were working with, they were all safe and protected. We were also issuing to them constant updates on the situation in the country. So this is the best that I can take out of ISAC. Like besides the personal development, there's also the professional side. Now I can go to any company on an interview to say, I can manage a crisis, and here is the proof. I went through this, and this was the outcome. Not only this, as you mentioned, I had many roles inside of the organization in different functions. I even worked with finance, which I'm quite bad at, but I learned something. And this is the thing with ISAC. You are going to have different positions, and most part of the times you are not ready to take that position. It is going to be challenging. You're going to receive transition, and you're going to learn more about your role, and you're going to figure it out a lot along the way. The moment that you're ready for that role, like the moment that you are 100% ready, is the moment that you are about to give transition to the next person that is coming. And this is the beauty of the organization. We are not here to keep one person for years in the same place. We want them to develop it. We need them to be challenged. I remember that one of the first conference that I attended, they had opportunities open for a team leader position. And I said, I just joined like today. Today is my first day in this organization. I have no clue of what am I supposed to do. And then they said, Diego, if you know what you're supposed to do, that position is not for you anymore. You need to apply for something else. And here I am, at the age of 28, I get to be country manager. It would be a CEO position for an organization outside of Brazil. And this means a lot, not only to me, but to companies. They value the experience that ISAC can give you. They value your willingness and your passion to a cause. And this is something that we even hear from the companies that we have global, I was going to use ISAC words, the companies that we have professional internships, they tell us we want ISAC talents because we know how hardworking and how motivated and passionate they are. So we usually have a very similar organizational culture to these companies. We don't have that much of a hierarchy. We listen to the people that are here with us. We listen to youth. We listen to our customers. We strive to be better while being sustainable. So these things are very important, not only for the organization to survive and grow, but also for youth to feel connected to them.
I think that was the perfect way of closing your words, because I'm imagining if there is anybody here that they think, yeah, I want to, but I feel insecure, or I feel I'm too shy, or I don't have the skills, I don't have anything in particular that I can put into there, like I'm not good at math maybe, I'm regular in this and this and this. I think ISAC is a very good place for that, because like you mentioned, if you were the expert, then there is no point of being in ISAC in that position in particular. Because also if you're an expert, you feel that you know what to do, so you don't need other people. And I think ISAC is very horizontal in that sense, or it tries to be. So if you feel a little bit insecure, you will have help. You're not going to be alone, but you're going to be challenged, and you're also going to be put into a volunteer organization. You're not in a paid job that has years and years of a company structure when everything will work as it has to be. In volunteer work, sometimes things don't work at all how it's supposed to be, but that's how life usually is. And I think with ISEC, you turn up very, very good, like you said, in crisis and in reacting to flexibility. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you for sharing things with us. Unfortunately, we got over the time, but if anybody has questions for you, also here on Instagram Live for Diego, or if you eventually have questions, of course, you can ask. I'm going to check here.
I'll just share one thing. We are recruiting in most of the countries where we have operations. So probably they already have a page for each country or university that ISEC is located, but you can also find all of this information at isec.org/membership. And there you can find more information about ISEC, and you can register for our membership opportunities. And no matter what you are studying, no matter if you are studying or not, as long as you are from 18 to 30 years old, ISEC is pleased to welcome you.
Oh, to 30, then I can join even now that I'm almost out. Well, I have one question here for you. The question is, how we were talking a little bit of how to start. How do you know when it's maybe good to have a pause? Like now you're stopping of being active member of ISEC. How do you know that this is the moment for doing that? Is a way of knowing that, or I don't know?
Yeah, I really believe that this part of what does this has to offer me. Is there still something that I can learn? Is there something that I want to learn more from the organization? Is there something else that I can explore? I believe that these things are very important. Of course, that if you think about it, oh, there's always something to learn inside of ISEC. That's true, but for some of us, it reaches a moment of stagnation, or that the development is not as impactful or not as fast as it used to be. So I believe that this has been the case for me, because not only I've stayed almost 6 years in ISEC, I've also been on volunteering exchanges twice, and I also took some other projects with ISEC. So I believe that I have already amounted enough experience and enough skills to do something outside of ISEC and bring impact in a different way. So you leave ISEC, but ISEC never leaves you. It is part of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's lovely to know, because like my experience, I was in ISEC in 2015, and I think it definitely like had an impact on my life and how do I feel about my own life, how do I relate to other people, and my love for Brazil as well. Of course, it has something to do with that, because I did my volunteer work in Brazil. I taught Spanish and English to residents. That was my way of contributing, but of course there was other ways as well. So just like I mentioned before, there is an ISEC KCL, so it's an ISEC in our university in Kings. Sometimes it's very useful to go to the same university, because they will tell you how, for example, to volunteer maybe in London, what kind of work are they doing in the university. But you can also do something that is when you volunteer abroad. So you contact your ISEC KCL, for example, King's College London, but then you say, I want to do a volunteer position in Chile. And maybe you can go for 2 months. It can be a short experience, but it will be definitely very intense. And you decide which city, you decide what kind of job, what kind of role you want to have, like teaching English, working with kids, elderly, climate change. And they will locate you in a house with other volunteers or with a family. So you also have the opportunity to share with the community. You will, for example, you go to Chile, you will meet people from Chile, you will learn their culture, their costumes as well. And you're going to have the experience, the whole experience of being abroad, without so much structure, but at the same time being more autonomous, but having a team and actually causing an impact. So I think it's a very, very good option. And also, for example, if one of you are thinking, yeah, I want to study abroad, but I don't know if I can handle having 3 or 4 years, you can start with ISEC and you can have a short volunteer work for 2 months and you can see how the experience goes for you. So I will recommend it. We are going now to our third speaker. Like I mentioned, you and everybody here can ask questions during the whole talk, either on Zoom on the chat or in Instagram in the comments. And also, if you want to share your own opinion and you want to unmute yourself and talk, you are more than welcome to do that. Give me 1 second, Catherine. I know also, Diego, that you had some images maybe, but if after we finish you want to share some of that content, of course you can do it as well. Yes, excellent. So we can include it. And we are going to get ready for Catherine. Perfect. Sorry, I'm just continuing the Instagram live because after 1 hour, we have been 1 hour live. I need to restart everything. So give me 2 seconds. Excellent. So we are back here. We are in the Tea Talk about volunteer work. We have had Maddie talking about the Red Cross in the UK and particularly miles for refugees. And we also had Diego talking about ISEC. And now we have Catherine, and she's going to present her part as well. But I wanted to start with a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to ask you, and you don't have to have a certain answer, but what does volunteer work mean to you?
I think to me, overall volunteer work sort of means deliberately choosing to partake in an organization or a charity, either by myself or in a group, and to sort of contribute something, as it were, and to sort of try to make a difference, whether that be in the community, in a specific place, with a specific sort of population. I think volunteer work is so broad that you can really find anything to do with what matches your interests. And I know loads of people that do various voluntary things and they all love what they do. So.
Thank you for that. I think a lot of people will agree with the same things that you mentioned, making a difference, finding how your own interest can be there to help maybe a community or to help yourself as well during the process. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit of your journey, how this story with volunteer work started for you.
Well, I think it really began for me a few years ago when I was about 14. I was sort of sitting at home, and I used to do sports after school, but I used to sit at home Saturday, and I remember thinking one day, I need to do something. I like helping people, but I need to get out there and do something. And I remember talking to my parents, and my parents were really supportive and said, well, sure, you can try some things. And we looked at local sort of youth action projects, which is how I really got started with volunteering. And I worked with them from 14 to 18 when I left the university. And I also used to volunteer for a local charity that worked with children with visual impairment. So those two gave me sort of quite early experience. And then when I moved to university, I started working with the NHS in one of the local hospitals near me. And I worked as, well, I still work there, but I worked as a ward assistant and a sort of activity facilitator. So I've done quite a lot of roles, to be honest, but most of them have been sort of befriending a lot of the patients and spending sort of one-to-one time with the patients, doing things like reading to them, giving them sort of opportunities for social interaction. I think one thing that people sort of don't realise unless you've ever been in hospital, especially as the hospital I've been working at is a rehabilitation hospital, a lot of the patients there are there for a couple of months at least to sort of 1 or 2 years. So for some of them, and a lot of these patients have families that work. So being able to sort of visit them once a week can mean the world to them. And that's really how I started. And then I started assisting with sort of activity groups. So there was a sort of movement group, and a sort of relaxation group, and a sort of a game and puzzle group as well. So I've been involved in lots of things, and then from there I was able to build on the strengths and skills I already had through my other volunteering, but I started taking more leadership, and I began to give out my ideas and things of how to improve certain things that we were doing to the staff, and giving them feedback on how patients were doing. And I found from there that they were really keen on one of my ideas, which has now been implemented. This idea was, it actually came about because of the COVID-19 situation.
Plans with everyone.
Yeah. But obviously with no visitors allowed in for several months, and family often finding it difficult to come in anyway, it was quite clear that a lot of the patients were struggling, and I was a sort of a dining assistant as well, and I started doing that sort of just in January, and it's sort of assisting with feeding patients and helping them with meal times. And one thing we found from doing those meal times is that a lot of the patients would say to me, you know, I really miss my family. I just wish I could give them a hug, but I can't do that. And some of them really struggled to understand the COVID-19 situation. And I think we all struggled to understand it at times. But I think for them, especially with suffering a traumatic brain injury and having to deal with the effects of that in the pandemic, it was quite difficult. And so I set up a pen pal sort of scheme, which enabled individuals who often already knew about the hospital when were volunteers anyway. And we arranged for letters to be sent to the patients that would just say, hello, and would just talk about normal things, and enable patients to sort of have a conversation, even though it was not in person. So, yeah.
The power of conversation sometimes gets underestimated, but it is so important. And now with COVID, we all return to that. And one of the things that we all missed the most was the human connection, hugs, being able to, like a lot of times it's said here in the UK, to have a cup of tea with someone and just be there with someone. So I think it's very lovely, the idea that you had, and also not even now, everything that you have been saying since you were 14, I think has to do with that, with human connection, with being there for someone. And I was wondering if the Catherine that was 14 look at you now, what do you think she will say?
She'd probably be quite surprised that I'm a lot more confident than I used to be. I talk a lot more than I used to for starters. I think, it's been quite a journey. And I think the main reason why it's been so good is that I've just been so open to things, and I think you can always say no, but there's no harm in saying yes.
In what way?
With volunteering, saying yes to sort of the opportunities you can get, you only really get advantages from them. I've never had sort of problems with volunteering, and I think that if I was to sort of talk to my 14-year-old self now, I'd probably say that volunteering is probably one of the best things you can do, because it gives you so many skills, and it's something that you can do continually, and you can find, like the other speakers have said, how you can find lots of things in common with the people you're around, and you can use the skills you do have and work with other people who have other skills as well. And I think being able to sort of be aware of who you are, and sort of the developments that you are going through yourself, are really important. So I'd probably say to my 14-year-old self to just enjoy it and probably not worry so much.
Did you worry a lot when you were 14?
Yeah, I've been a bit of a worrier, but I'm not nearly as bad now as I used to be.
I was thinking in how sometimes when we are doing volunteer work, even if it's something that we choose, like we had a lot of thought in which volunteer work, or if you just, like you said, like somebody asked you and you said, you know what, yes. I was wondering what kinds of things have you learned, or how has the volunteer work helped you? For example, in the development of this career, more in the mental health area, neuroscience.
So I started my bachelor's degree in psychology, having a little bit of experience working with people, but I'd never really worked with people that closely before. So working in our hospital environment really opened my eyes to sort of how important communication was. And I think especially in the field of sort of mental health, medicine, psychology, counselling, I think communication is probably the biggest thing you can have to your advantage. Um, and I think it's something that you always learn different things. I've learned since becoming a volunteer, I've learned some Makaton, which is a language that's used with people with learning disabilities.
Oh, what's the name again?
Makaton.
Lacton?
Makaton, yeah.
So how is it, for example, if you can give us?
It's a little bit like sign language. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think now on the spot. So it's sort of just using actions whilst you're speaking. And sort of making sure that people can sort of see what you're doing, both verbally and physically.
Excellent.
I tried to implement some Makaton. I'm not sure if it worked, but there you go.
You also mentioned that you work with people with different sight visions as well, and for example, what kind of work did you do there?
So I was like an activity volunteer and an events volunteer. So I used to help out at a lot of the events, and I used to help work with some of the children, helping them to access the activities, and I used to sort of listen to what the children were saying and sort of collect feedback. And I also used to talk to the parents. It's a sort of it was a family charity, and I think sort of listening to what the parents had to say about sort of life with a visual impairment was really interesting. And I think having that different perspective taught me to sort of empathize with people, which is definitely important in the line of work I want to go into, which is clinical psychology.
Yeah. Well, I interrupt you when you were talking about what kind of things did you learn, and one of the things that you mentioned was that when you work with people that have different abilities, having your message actually being received by the other person is very, very important, I think, for everyone. So one of the things that you learned was the kind of language that will facilitate that. If somebody had hearing problems or they couldn't see right, so that would like make it easier. What kind of other things you think that you've learned in your experiences?
Well, I think definitely making adaptations and communication are key ones. I think problem solving. I think volunteering, you always have something that doesn't go quite right, or you have something that works and then suddenly does not, like technology. And so you sort of learn to sort of react quite quickly and think creatively, especially working with people who have additional needs and who may need various sort of modes of accessibility. I think it's been really interesting for me to sort of get to know how I'm able to think quickly and sort of think of ideas that will help other people. in different ways.
Yeah, I think that that's very lovely, and I just cannot stop smiling just because you mentioned something that's very important, that adapting to everything, to the context, to what other people may be thinking or needing, also about the type of language that you might be using, to different abilities, to different educational levels and stuff like that. And I imagine how that can also have an impact in you, in me, and everyone that's working. And also the sense of, like you mentioned when you were like 14, that I'm actually able to do this. Actually, even if I think I'm not good enough in this or in this, or I don't have this ability, I am good. I thought yeah. So it's like a self-discovery journey as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think one of the last questions that I wanted to ask was, you mentioned that you volunteer with the NHS. So, for example, if somebody here is listening that and they think, oh, how can I do that myself? Do I need to be a psychology student necessarily? Who do I contact? What kinds of roles can I have? I don't know if you can tell us a little bit of your own experience with the NHS.
Yeah. So I think most NHS trusts in England are the same. I think they're mostly the same in Scotland as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know within England, if you just look for your local NHS trust, and if you go onto their page, there's most of the time like a get involved tab, and they'll often have different opportunities within the trust. Some of them might be, I don't know, running the local hospital radio. Some of them might be doing sort of ward volunteer work like I've been doing. And then there's usually lots of different volunteering roles. And you don't have to be a psychology student or a medical student or anything. You can sort of...
Oh, sorry,
Pardon?
you were saying something.
I was just saying, you don't really have to have that sort of scientific education behind you. I think the biggest thing you can bring is a sort of enjoyment working with people. And you do have to fill in a few forms, and you do have to undergo a DBS check. But sort of, you learn so much.
You can never escape the DBS check.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking while you were talking now that I have heard this before. For example, somebody says, yeah, I really, like, I don't know, I have been to a psychologist in the past, or I have had depression or something. And then I feel, yeah, I want to give back. I want to be a volunteer, maybe in the NHS or maybe in mental health. And then somebody says, but how are you going to help someone if you have a problem? And I think sometimes a lot of people get discouraged because it's almost this assumption that you need to be perfect in every single area of your life so you can actually help someone. So if you have depression, how are you going to help people with depression?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I can personally say, I've used the NHS for much of my life because I'm diagnosed with a disability. And I found that, I've had people who said to me, I'm not really sure you're right for that. Or, are you sure you want to do this? And I think the biggest thing you can do is to just do it.
Yeah.
And it's very satisfying to prove people wrong. But I also think it gives you confidence. And I think you know yourself. If you think you can do it, then I think you should be able to do it. And I think actually, continuing from your example, say someone's, they want to help in a service with patients with depression, and they've had depression themselves. I think actually it's an advantage. You're able to use your personal experience to empathize with someone, and you've been in their shoes, not the same size shoes, but you've been in the same style of shoe, as it were.
Yeah.
And I think being able to sort of give someone that understanding of, oh, they believe me, and my words do matter, is really important. And I think especially today with mental health being such a big thing. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I really like the phrase, and I think also it's a very good way to end your speech of like, you have been in the same size maybe of shoes, but it's not the same, because no people have the same exact experience, not even twins have. So we really don't have that. And I just wanted to end saying that sometimes, for example, you mentioned disability. So sometimes when you are able to show maybe to kids or teenagers or whoever you're working with, that somebody that looks like them can actually help or can actually be in a different position, also empowers a lot without even having to say anything. You see, oh, sometimes people in my life have said, because you have this or this, you're not going to be able to go far. And then somebody that looks like you or that thinks like you, in the case, for example, of LGBT community, it's somebody that's from a different, they are not heterosexual, I mean, you feel they can actually do things that a lot of people told me I can't. And I'm seeing this in real lifetime, that is actually possible. And I think that's also a very good role, important role that we all have, that something in us can make somebody feel more empowered, even if we don't say anything sometimes. Yeah. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Emma, do you have any questions? Or Diego? I'm going to point that out. I'm going to check also here on Instagram. Okay, I have one here. Not on the moment. Well, Emma, if you have any questions after, of course. I think one of the questions has to do with, so for example, you can do volunteer work all your life, but you also decided to go into psychology and neuroscience. So how do you think you can complement a paid job in the future with volunteer work when you are a little bit older?
Well, I think first of all that obviously you can sort of do volunteer work whenever, but as I was doing my degree and this volunteer work on the side, it really helped influence sort of what I was learning at university, was thinking how it can be applied to, you know, people who I was working with, and how sort of the personalities that other people have may influence what we were talking about in our lectures. And I think that, you know, being able to sort of take one thing and sort of apply it to something else and be able to evaluate everything is really important. In as the question sort of mentioned, it was about sort of complementing jobs and things. I think you can take that to whatever job you get. I've recently been appointed as a health support worker, and I found that the skills I learned from being able to interact with people, from being able to talk to people and sort of think on my feet and problem solve the things that I can immediately put into my new job. And they will help me for the rest of my life in whatever I do. So I think if you want to do it, you should just do it.
Well, we have a clear final message from Catherine. If you want to do it, you should just do it. And I think goes also with Diego, what Diego was saying, that sometimes you feel that you need to be prepared and ready for a position, and sometimes it's just, you just need to try, because you don't need to be the expert. You just need to be willing to give your time. I think time is something very important for volunteer work. Well, thank you so much again, Catherine. And again, you are welcome to stay as long as you want. And if you have any questions for Diego, for example, and then you think, oh, I should have asked that, you can do it. And now we have Emer and the same. And I hope you enjoy your time here as well.
Hi, I hope my internet holds up. So firstly, I just want to jump in on that question as well. One thing I would say about volunteering and I suppose your future career, I think it's a great way to actually see if something is a right fit for you. So if you really are passionate about an area and you think maybe you want to work in that area, if you get some volunteering experience in that area, it can really help. Or it can even might even influence your career choice. But yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my volunteering experience. So like Catherine, I also did an undergraduate in psychology, and so my main interest is in mental health. So for that reason, during my undergraduate, I searched for volunteering experiences. So when I was doing my undergraduate, I volunteered with an organisation called the Mariosa Foundation, and it's based in Ireland. And I volunteered in both their day service and their residential service for individuals with learning disabilities. So I was like a buddy system. So in the residential service, I was a buddy for a lady with an intellectual disability, and then in the day service, I just gained some volunteering experience for 2 weeks, just acting as an extra pair of hands in the day-to-day running of the day service. So I volunteered with them for 2 years, and then I had to leave that organization because I moved to a different city. And when I moved to a different city, when I was there, I volunteered with an organization where I helped disadvantaged youth with their homework and their like social and emotional well-being. And again, I had to leave that due to moving to another city. And then I decided then I would go online with my volunteering. So I joined Bodywise, which is an organization for people with eating disorders. And they provide support to either people experiencing eating disorders themselves, or maybe they have friends or family that are suffering with disordered eating. So I was part of their email support volunteer team, and so like as part of this as well, like I would have got training, and then I volunteered for 2 years with Bodywise as well. And then just recently, because of COVID, I wanted to volunteer again because I obviously had extra time on my hands, but I also wanted to find something that I could do to help out. So I signed up with, in Ireland we have an organisation that like connects volunteers with maybe like causes that they're interested in. So I signed up with them, and eventually I found an organisation that I felt I was really would like to like volunteer with, and that I suppose my values and morals were aligned with. So I began volunteering with Aware, which is an organisation for people experiencing depression or bipolar disorder. So I've been volunteering with them since July. So I have many different volunteering experiences, and I feel like all of them have been really influential in I suppose shaping my career decisions. And I actually worked for a year and a half in Ireland in the HSC, which is the equivalent of the NHS, working in the community with people with intellectual disabilities. And that was, I suppose, my volunteer experience really gave me a feel for that area, and it was an area in psychology that I never really expected that I would, I suppose, go into. And then from volunteering, I loved it, and then I was seeking out opportunities in that area. And I'm actually now moving to the UK in September to take up a job in this area again. So that it just shows you that like one volunteering experience can shape your whole could potentially shape your whole career, and also give you that experience that you need, because it, I don't know if there are psychology students listening. I'm sure they all know how difficult it can be to get your foot on the ladder and to get jobs and get experiences. So all of these experiences, whether to you they may seem small, but like they are huge in terms of like getting experience in, and also just showing that you're passionate about what you're studying, and that you care about mental health. So yeah, that's my experiences.
I think it's very nice that even if you were changing the city where you were living, like this idea of I need to do something and volunteer work is like it came with you to all the cities and to all the places.
Yeah, that was because I feel like it can be hard as well to leave a volunteer organization. So like when you're moving cities, it's like, oh, you don't want to like completely just disengage. So it's nice to I suppose it's something if you build it into your routine as well, that like you're kind of willing to keep up. And um I just feel like I've got, from my volunteering experiences, I've got a lot back, like in personal wise, like it's really helped with my career path. So for that reason, it's something that I want to do and keep doing, even though now I would feel like, it's very much a personal choice now. And I know a lot of people will do it to gain experience, and that's perfectly fine. But I think then when you get that experience, you're like, okay, well, I want to continue with this because I've gained from it. So I want to continue giving back. And I just really enjoy it. And I've just recently joined Aware, and I have to say they're just an amazing organization, and the support that we receive is incredible. I feel so supported in every way. And I just really, really enjoy volunteering with them. And I'm so glad that I joined, because they said that their service was quite inundated during COVID, obviously, because a lot of people were experiencing, maybe periods of sadness or depression for the first time, obviously because of the lockdown. So yeah, I think COVID really made me want to volunteer again, and I'm glad now that I did.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of that's happening now with the COVID and everything. It has to do also with that. Like if you already had problems with something, a lot of people found it that it's very difficult, because now you cannot even go outside or distract yourself. A lot of people got caught up in the 24/7 news system as well, or having their families away, like we were mentioning in the beginning. So I think a lot of NGOs, charities, and volunteer places really took a big step in this situation. Of course, in the beginning, everybody was like, what's happening? But then in a way or another, they adapt, or even new charities came up. So they could, like, for example, in the beginning, Miles for Refugees and everything is online. So you can actually be part of that. Even if you're not running outside with a lot of people, you can do it in a different way. And I think what you're talking about, Aware, there is a very big influence and company that they can also provide, even if everything is online. There's always something that you can do.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it was that was one thing I spent a lot of time kind of, I suppose, like searching for an organization that I'd like to work with. And what I was kind of looking for was an organization that, even, if the pandemic had passed, that I would still like to organize with. So yeah, as you said, there was loads of opportunities that came up, I think, in the first few months, but my main aim was that I could find one that wasn't just for the period of time maybe that the lockdown was on. I was kind of looking for a more long-term one, but also that I could provide, I suppose, support or volunteer for that organization throughout the lockdown. So I was lucky that I found Aware in that sense.
Talking about that word, founding or finding, how has been your journey with that? Because I think a lot of people would like, yeah, I think doing volunteer work could be good, but how do you find them? Because maybe they know a couple of volunteer places, but then other people mention something and, oh, I never heard of that. So I believe in every time that you move and everything, you did a different, like you had a different experience finding this opportunity. So what are your strategies to finding something?
I think the first time I volunteered, I was looking within my area, so where I was living. So I was trying to look for organizations that were in the area, because I wanted to do, like, I suppose, face-to-face volunteering. And I actually got in touch with my neighbor who was involved with an organization, and actually it turned out he was the volunteer coordinator. So when I got talking to him, he talked to me a lot about you know, the organization and what it entails, and that's was, I suppose, the first role. But I would have like asked around a lot before then, emailed places. So I suppose I kind of struck lucky in that sense when I talked to him. When I moved again and I worked, when I volunteered, sorry, in an organization, the organization with young disadvantaged youths. I actually found that through my university. So there was an advertisement for volunteers within the university, and it was something that I was interested in doing. So I not signed up, I applied to volunteer for that job or that role. And then when I moved again, I suppose I kind of realized there was a bit of a pattern where I had to kind of keep I had to stop every time I moved. So I decided then, that's when I decided I would like to try online volunteering, because if I moved I could move the volunteering role with me. So that's why I went to Bodywise. And I think when I moved to Bodywise as well, it was around a time where I was I was younger, and I think a lot of girls my age would have been kind of experiencing disordered eating, and I would have seen it maybe like patterns in friends. So it was kind of something that I was kind of passionate about and interested in for that reason, and really wanted to be, it was an area that I really wanted to be able to provide some sort of help and support. And that's why I chose that organization specifically. And then this time again, this time it took a long time to kind of find the right, not the right organization, but I suppose an organization that I really wanted to volunteer with. And I used two methods. I spent a long time looking up charities and NGOs in Ireland, and then I also signed up with, in Ireland we have a website which is called iVolunteers, and you can register your interest and your areas of interest and where you're based, and whether you want to go online or, you know, in person, and then they will try their best to link you in with a service. But I actually ended up finding Aware on my own. But yeah, I think it's really, I suppose, maybe like thinking about what you are looking for in terms of volunteering, and what's your aims and what's your goals, and then thinking about your own values, and then looking at an organization's, their mission statement, or maybe their values, and seeing whether you feel like your values align with their values, and then you can really start the process of volunteering. But also really thinking about like your time, like how much time you have to give to volunteering. And I think if it's a thing where you have maybe like, you actually have a time slot that you can give 2 hours a week, then you can look into more long-term volunteering opportunities. But if it's something where you don't have as much time, I don't think you should feel like, oh no, volunteering isn't for me. Like there are lots of organizations that are looking for people maybe to fundraise, or one-off volunteers for events. So I wouldn't let that put you off. There's always room for volunteers and volunteering.
I think that's a very good strategy, and I think for anybody listening, or even for the 7 of you that I have now, talking about what you do is also a very important part, because like you mentioned, one of the first volunteers job work that you did was because your neighbor, blah, blah, blah. So
yeah.
If you didn't know your neighbor, or if you never spoke about that, you will never find out. So maybe you're saying, oh, but if I put something on Google, you have 3 zillion websites, but maybe if you say to your group of friends, have you ever felt that you want to do something for the environment? And maybe one of them will say, yeah, I do this every Sunday. And sometimes you can even start like that, and you can have the support of having a friend, for example. The other thing that I wanted to ask you was about the one that you are now, Aware. If somebody, for example, thinks that will be a good place for them to try to help, what do they have to do?
So I went onto their website, and they have volunteers. Most websites will have a volunteers area where you can see what type of volunteering what type of volunteers they're looking for. So they actually have email support volunteers. They have volunteers who run their life skills program, and then they have a life skills group, which they usually have in person, but obviously it's at the moment it's not, but they would have volunteers who run the group, and then they have a support line, and they have volunteers for their support line. So you can go on and you can look at the different types of volunteering and what it entails, and then you can choose which one that you think suits you, and then fill out an application form and send it off, and then you'll have a like a pretty relaxed semi like interview, and then if you get the job, then you'll undertake training, and that's how I went about getting that job.
Excellent.
I mean, job, they're volunteering. I keep saying job.
Because, I mean, sometimes we think that a job is only when you get paid, but if you're doing volunteer work, or if you are a housewife or husband, it's so much work. It's not that you're doing nothing. It's actually a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of thinking of what you can do. So it's a job. Like in some countries, for example, being a firefighter is also a volunteer, but it's a job. You just don't receive like a particular salary, but it is a job. It requires time. It requires developing some skills, not necessarily having them before. You train for them as well. I think the last question that I want to ask, thinking about time, because like I said, I could be sitting here talking with all of you for hours. I mean, we can do that after. But my question is, if you had all the resources that you need in the future, for example, what type of charity or organization would you do? What kinds of things do you think you need to have? Like what kind of vision? And if you had any particular topic that you say, I would love to do an organization about this. Anything comes to mind?
I think I would like to an organization for young people, and young people that are like struggling with transitions in their lives. So maybe like teenagers and young adults, and just like maybe school dropouts, and just really around mental health struggles, and I think that'll be my main area, like teenagers and young adults and that are struggling with their mental health, and I think to do that, the resources, I think it's just being passionate about something, and building up relationships and building up connections, and also getting experience and advice from people that are in the area, or people that are just knowledgeable and know more about setting up an organization. But yeah, I think you just need to really go for it if it's something that you're passionate about, and as if you never try, never know, is the saying, and even if you only help one person, it won't be a failure. So
Do you think if you were a teenager, that would be an organization that it would call your mind?
Yeah, I think so. I think that kind of more like making mental health accessible, and also making it like less of a taboo, and really I like making it normal that we can talk about our mental health, and that if you want to reach out, that it's not strange, or it's not seen as like something that you shouldn't do. Like it's just really normalizing mental health, so that like young people can have that space to talk, because I feel like it for teenagers and young adults, like they go through so many changes and transitions, and a lot of them don't reach out for support, and a lot of them use like obviously maybe like alcohol or like partying as a way of coping. So like trying to like fill that gap, or to provide like other ways of coping and other ways of supporting them. And I think it would be more like at looking at normalizing mental health, and I think it's something that it would be great, because it's unfortunately mental health is still quite a taboo subject, so that would be something that I'd be really passionate about, is just making it more accessible and normalizing it.
So you heard, if anybody here has the same idea, maybe you can contact her, and in the future you can actually build something with that, because you only need one other person to start that. And another thing that you mentioned, just to close this moment, was if you can help someone, you're doing something. And I feel that is something that we all experience. Like, for example, me as a community facilitator, we do have that in mind all the time. Like, I want to do an event when I have a lot of people coming so I can reach more people. But it's actually about how this is an impact, a positive impact for anyone that is actually in our event. So if we have one person, but that person actually had fun, or that person learned something new, then we actually did something. But sometimes we all get caught on the quantity, and that's also something that happens in the NHS, and it happens in the health system in Chile as well, that they say you need 100 people doing this, even if the quality is not good, because the numbers are numbers are numbers. But when we're talking about volunteer work, of course we have stats, and of course we have numbers, but we also, and the quality is very important. And I'm just saying that so people don't get discouraged. Like, if they want to do something and they reach one person, you reach one person. You were there for one person. That without you wouldn't have that moment. And even if you start with one person, you are doing something. Maybe that person can help you to reach other people, and they will help you as well, because it's like a double way thing. It's not, I am the expert, I have no problems with mental health, so I'll come here, even with us, like working in that field. So thank you again so much. And again, I open for any questions or comments from the other speakers. And I don't know if Diego or Catherine had any questions. Not yet? Okay. I have one here.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, Emma? No?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Emma? Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So the question is, have you always done one volunteer work at a time? Or when you say that you change, it's like you focus 100% in something, or you're doing a lot of things at the same time? But what do you recommend?
No, I've always stuck to one volunteering at the one time. Just personally, I think that if you're working or studying, it is a commitment. It depends on the organization as well. So like right now I'm with aware that you when you volunteer for 3 hours a week. So I think it would be quite a lot to take on something else on top of that. But also I think because you get training, and like it's like volunteering can be quite structured. It's good to maybe like stick with the one organization, so that you're not, like, I suppose, get mixed up, or like you want to have your focus on one cause, or so for me personally, I would just say one organization, but I think it depends on the person and your time. But I've never crossed over. No.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the strategies can help different to other people, but like she mentioned, some volunteer work includes a lot of training, a lot of hours, and if you're doing that on top of working, on top of studying, maybe you can focus on one. But if you're not studying or working, you have more time.
Exactly.
So thank you again so much. And the connection, perfect. Like we didn't.
Oh, great. It's very temperamental.
Yeah. So I think your connection likes talking about volunteer work, because it did work.
Great.
Let me see now then if I can show you the video that I have. Because like I mentioned, we have another speaker, but she was not able to be here with us because of previous commitments. But she is here on the video. So I'm going to share this. If the video starts and nobody hears anything, please let me know, because I won't be able to see your faces. So just say, put it again. And we will start now. Her name is Maya, and she's a King student. Thank you so much, Maya, for giving us the time to pre-record this interview. For everyone watching right now, she really wanted to be with us, but because of the time zones and because of her schedule, she's not able. But now we have her, so thank you and welcome to the Tea Talk. Thank you for having me, Franny. And I would really like you to introduce yourself. So if you can tell us your name again, and maybe what are you studying, what are your hobbies, so people can get to know you a little bit more.
Hey, so hi, I'm Maya. My dad is from Britain and my mum is from Malaysia. I was fortunate enough to grow up in 6 different countries, and I currently study at King's College London at the same university as Franny. We actually met because we're both in the GKT women's football team, which is a big passion of ours both, which was really fun during my first year at university at King's. And I'm studying global health and social medicine. And interestingly, King's is the only university in Britain that does this course, which is why I'm here. But yeah, so I just finished my first year and I've really enjoyed what I've done. And it also ties very closely in with what we're going to be talking about today. And also my background growing up in lots of different countries and being multi-race.
Yeah, it's like you are the image of interculturality because of all you're aiming for, and probably in the future you're going to be living in a lot of countries as well, I can see.
I think that as well, when I stay in one place for too long, I kind of get like a bit flighty, like, oh, I want to go to the next adventure, next place. So I'm always looking for something new to do, new people to help and things to learn. So that's why King's is a great choice for me as well, because there's people from all over, just like when I was living in other countries as well.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. And I think probably you are going to talk a little bit about that later, but a lot of the volunteer work, one of the motivations that people have is to travel to a different country. And one of the ways that you can do that is for volunteer work. So yes. I want to start with the first question that I usually ask everyone is, when you think about volunteer work, what ideas come to your mind?
When I think of volunteering, it always has to do with giving your time, usually for free, to either people or animals, or even just nature, for example, because I mean, planting trees somewhere is also a form of volunteering, even though it's not necessarily just helping someone else, like as a human. And there's also volunteering you can do with animals in animal sanctuaries and rescue centers, and this kind of work I've also been fortunate to do. So I've done quite a range of different things for the environment as well, for example, like water treatment and beach cleaning, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I think those are the things that come to mind. It's always very rewarding, it's very enjoyable, and you often meet people with similar interests and you learn new things about the place you're in, the people you're with, or the animals, or the natural environment, for example.
Yeah, I think you're very right in that, like, there's not only one field to be a volunteer. And sometimes people have an idea, like, for example, they think volunteer means animals, not because they don't believe there's other places, just because they're more drawn to that. I want to know, for example, what is your first experience with volunteer work? How did you decide to start that, and how did you pick something? Because you like a lot of things, so how did you pick the first one to start with?
Okay, the first volunteering I remember doing was when I was living in Malaysia, which is where my mom's from. And there are a lot of Rohingya refugees in Malaysia who fled Myanmar, or Burma if you know it as that, because they were being persecuted due to their religion as being Islamic. And my aunt was a teacher at a school for refugees in Malaysia, so it was just held in a room, and children, even if they didn't have their parents anymore, or if just as they came from Myanmar, they could join the school and they would be taught English, maths, some science as well as they got older, and how to get a job, for example. So how to do some financing, how to apply for a job. And so I would go and help out with the younger children to learn English. So that was my first volunteering, and I think I was maybe 11 or 12 years old when I was doing this. So that was my first basic experience, and that was when I lived in Malaysia. I did that for a few years, and then I moved from that school to doing an extracurricular activity at my school in Malaysia, which was where refugees would come to our school actually, and I would, after school, give an hour's lesson, like help plan a lesson, for example.
Yeah, I was thinking how sometimes we can do volunteer work for, I don't know, a couple of days, and how sometimes our whole lives are around that. Because I think one aspect to also have in mind always is that, for example, if you're working with refugees, you can do something. Like, even if it's very small, you can actually do something. And sometimes we feel very hopeless. Like, we see things happening even when you were like 11, and then you feel maybe I can help in some way, or what can I do? And sometimes volunteer work helps you with that. But at the same time, for them, in the case that we're talking about refugees, it's something that it can take years and years. So they can actually start feeling that they are being helped or they are being held by the community. So congratulations on the work that you have been doing. And I know how lost sometimes we can feel when we watch the news or social media, and we see everyone needs help everywhere in the world, and then we say,
it can be very overwhelming.
Exactly, like, do I have the skills, like, if I'm 11? So I think I would like to know, what was your role when you were 11, when you started? Like, what was the kind of things that you did?
So my aunt was one of the main English teachers at this small, it wasn't a school, it was more like a centre, so the children just came in and out. So she would say, okay, today I want you to sit with this group and talk to them about animals, for example, or maybe with the younger children go through the alphabet. And I think they really enjoyed having a kid or a child's presence, for example, because it wasn't just like an adult or their teacher. It was just another kid who is also kind of innocent and is not having kind of like maybe an agenda of like teaching, you have to do this, just going through the alphabet, singing some songs that I knew when I was growing up, or talking about my favorite animal, for example, and maybe showing them photos, or just bonding as a child, I suppose, but also as I was teaching English. And then obviously as I got older, so when I started teaching at my school that I was going to, I could then become more involved in lesson planning, for example. So thinking, okay, well, this term I have 12 sessions, and then my friends and I, my friends who were also joining in, would say, okay, great, well, I am maybe specialized in this area, so I can give a talk. And that was actually a great learning experience, to plan a lesson, fun and interactive, as well as educational. So I think my skills kind of developed in that way as I got older, and I could, recognize the more like psychological aspects of teaching, I suppose, than when I was just like 10 or 11 when I was starting out.
It sounds like a very good thing to give when you're a kid, just conversation, because like I was mentioning before, sometimes people want to do volunteer work or they want to help the community, but they feel they don't have the necessary skills. So sometimes when you actually put on Google volunteer work, it will say, do you know how to build a house? And maybe you're very bad with manual things, so you feel, okay, I cannot do this. But you were 11 or 10, and the only expectation that was asked for you was like, talk to them about things that you like. And I think that's a very good thing that you can ask a kid, and you can have a major impact.
Yeah, but it was interesting that you mentioned the building thing, because when I was in Malaysia, we had the option every year of choosing a humanitarian project to go and help. So we'd have like a list of 40 different projects, some in other countries, for example. And one of them was building a toilet at a school in Cambodia. And we went out there, and I actually learned how to bricklay, for example. So even though I had no prior experience of doing this, I went out there, and the local construction company was there, and they helped us learn how to build. So not only did we build a toilet for the school, but they gave money to the local construction company to teach us a skill of how to build a toilet. So it was kind of like a both-way exchange, that they gained something, but we also gained something at the same time.
Yeah, I think something
that will, carry on being of use.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting that you mention it, because sometimes when we think about volunteer work, we think about we giving our time or our skills or our money, but the communities that are in the volunteer place, they also give us their time and their skills and their knowledge, so we can help them, because it's not like I have all the skills and you don't.
Yes,
so that's
exactly. It's not like volunteerism, where you go somewhere and you're like basically a tourist, but you're doing kind of volunteering, like it's masked by the whole volunteering thing. I think it's the exchange of abilities and skills and knowledge that is interesting as well.
Following that, and this is because I know Maya from this couple of months, this year actually, and this thing of giving back. I know that you really love sports, and you made that clear in the beginning, and you had one challenge for this year.
Yes.
And in exchange for that challenge, they ask you to raise money. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, of course. So at the beginning of uni, I remember a poster coming through in our university flat, because I was staying in halls, and it said, choose a challenge, trek to Everest Base Camp for charity. So this caught my eye because trekking to Everest Base Camp was always something that I had dreamed of doing. Going to Nepal, where I've never been, and doing something really physically challenging. And I remember thinking about doing this a while ago, but it was always very expensive and not very affordable. So when I noticed this charity exchange, I thought, okay, great, maybe, I'm just going to go along to the talk and see what happens. So I went along to the talk that was held on the King's campus, and the company Choose a Challenge basically gave us a presentation about what they were doing, what the trip would entail, charities you could raise money for, the dates, for example, just a bit of an information evening, and then you could sign up. And then after the sign up, I went to a separate meeting held by the charity, which is Action Against Hunger, and they gave more information about exactly how much we have to raise, which was £3,000, and examples and the support network and this kind of information, which was separate from Choose a Challenge, who are the ones that run the actual expedition. So the deal was you pay 1,500 for the trip, so that you raise 3,000, 1,500 goes towards your trip, which I made very clear on my fundraising page, and 1,500 will go to the charity. So I wanted to raise more than 3,000, so I set my target as 3,100, which I've actually raised a bit more because I wanted more of the money to go to the charity, essentially.
So how does this work? How can somebody that's a student say, okay, friends or family, help me to raise money for charity? How do you start that movement?
So that's an interesting question, because I always feel like in order to ask people for money, I wanted to give something back. I didn't really want to just ask my friends and family, give me money because I'm doing this trip. So the first thing I did was I set up a website. So my website is mayagoestoeverest.wordpress. So it's a free website just I made on WordPress. I get all the information. Sorry, Franny?
I was just repeating the website. Maya Goes to Everest.
Yes, .wordpress.com. And that basically laid out all the information for my trip, where the money goes for Action Against Hunger, just a little bit about Action Against Hunger, and the fact that I researched this charity a lot before I chose it. It was the one recommended by Choose a Challenge, but I didn't want to raise money for just any charity. I wanted to make sure that it was a transparent charity in which most of the money, so I think it's 94p to the pound for this charity, goes straight to the cause, and the rest is used for admin. But the charity is rated 4 stars by several independent charity, charity investigators, for example. So the first thing I did was set up the website, and after that I began fundraising. I think my first fundraising was making Christmas cards, because that would have been a few months after I'd signed up. So I have a passion for creating arts and doing arts and crafts, and my mum recommended that I used recycled food packaging in my Christmas cards because Action Against Hunger, it kind of makes sense. So I made 100 Christmas cards and I sold them at £2.50 each, and all of the money went to the charity. So I didn't keep any money back for the materials or the packaging or even the post stamps that I used. And I was sending out a bunch of them to someone. I just paid for all myself because I just thought I want all the money to go to the charity. Apart from the Christmas cards, I did bag packing at Sainsbury's in London, which was organised by the team leaders who also go to King's on the trip. So the team leaders have to organise the students who are participating, but they get a discount on the trip. So they don't have to raise 3,100 or 3,000, they have to raise 1,900 or 2,500. So there's a bit of a discount for them. After that, I did corporate sponsorships. So I sent a poster essentially about what I was doing. So things that you could find information on my website, for example, and wrote to companies asking them if they would sponsor me. So that brought in some of the donations as well. And then after that, then Corona happened. So Corona happened in March. And so I was really nervous then. I mean, fundraising was never something I had done before this anyway. I was kind of nervous, thinking about what kind of things I could do to engage my community. So I thought, okay, well, my university accommodation has stairs. They have 7 floors of stairs. Perhaps I could do a challenge where I walked the equivalent elevation that I would start in Lukla in Nepal to Everest Base Camp on the stairs. So I did all the mathematical calculations. I figured out that the stairs are each 19 centimeters, and this is the total elevation. So this is how many stairs I have to walk. In the end, I believe I walked 14,022 stairs. Up and down I didn't count the down, I only counted the up because obviously elevation is going up. And that managed to raise the most money. That managed to raise almost £700, which I would have gotten if Corona hadn't have happened and I had done the bucketing fundraising in the tube stations in London. So the charity organised bucketing permits for the Action Against Hunger fundraisers for a weekend in London to do, but this was cancelled because of coronavirus. So this was sort of my replacement. And then the last thing I did was a bingo game over Zoom with my Malaysian friends and family, because before that point they hadn't really been involved. Mostly it was just my friends and my immediate family who live in the UK, because I'd spoken to them about it, but I hadn't really gotten around to talking to my Malaysian family and friends about it. So I did, instead of numbers, I did pictures, for example, on the bingo. So food, places, those kind of things. And that's how I finished up my fundraising, essentially. But unfortunately, the trip was cancelled for this year. So I am going to sign up for the trip that's happening next year.
Yeah, I think Corona has changed everyone's plans. And first, I want to congratulate you because you actually raised everything that you wanted to, and even more.
Thank you. I'm very fortunate for my friends and family, like you, for example, Franny, always supporting and encouraging me. So I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah, and I just wanted to end first thanking you for taking your time to explain a little bit of your journey, because of course there's a lot of other things, but we could be spending days and days talking about what you have been doing. But I think I just wanted to end with, you are never too young or too old to do volunteer work, and you don't need to be an expert, because volunteer work is usually about exchange. So you can say, okay, what can I be useful for?
Patterns, I think it's recognizing what you're interested in, because love for something that you're interested in always translates, and people always recognize that you're doing something that you enjoy, and it's not a chore, it's not paid, it's volunteering. So you want to communicate that love and that passion for what you're doing. I think that's very, very important.
And you can have so much love that you use your free time during quarantine to go up the stairs every day.
Well, I guess I'm also quite sporty, so it made sense that was a challenge that I took. But I will tell you that there is always something out there for you to do. And the internet is a wonderful place for discovering these things. So just set your mind to it. I'm pretty sure that there is plenty of volunteering hub websites. I can't think of one to my mind now, but I'm sure Franny can link some things where you can type in your interests and some certified charities will come up. It's really, really, really simple.
Yeah.
Just find what you love.
And if you're in the residences, always look at the board, because sometimes you can be like Maya and find a paper and you're like, oh, sports.
Yep. So I can't even imagine if I'd never seen that poster, this journey would never have happened.
Yeah.
So really, really something you should just go eyes open for.
So thank you again, Maya, for this. If you could repeat your website if people want to look it up.
Yep, it's Maya, so Maya, goes GOES 2TO Everest EVEREST .wordpress, so WORDPRESS.com.
Excellent. Thank you
And
so
that
much.
also has a link to my fundraising donation page, in which you can see actually who donated how much money and what money came from where and that kind of thing, if you're interested as well. It's an Everyday Hero page, so the link is on there as well. And the link to the charity and choose a challenge as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Franny.
Forward to spread the word as well. Thank you.
So that was Maya. I'm back with you now, Diego and Emma. I'm really pleased to have been able to hear all of your stories, and we all have a different way of approaching to volunteer work, or when somebody needs our help, how do we give some of our time, and just to think of everything that was said today, it has to do with an exchange. There's always like this phrase, like, you need to teach people how to fish, not only give them the fish. And I think that is too short for everything that volunteer represents, because you are going to be taught how to fish as well. You are not helping people that have no clue about how they live their lives. They just sometimes need some support, like we do. Sometimes volunteer people have helped me in something, and I think that's also important to know, that it's not two kinds of people that can help and people that need help. We all need help sometimes. We are all able to give some help sometimes. And in that sense, trying to be an expert, it kind of loses its point, because it doesn't have to do with you being able to do that. Also, if we see the people that are running some charities or NGOs, we maybe think, but they are so good in what they do, they have so many years of experience, but they started with something. And it can be like Maya at 11, or Catherine at 14, or maybe Diego, that he just met IASEG at one point on his life, and now he invested 6 years of his life to that. And it can be something done online, even now with COVID. COVID doesn't stop that. Like I mentioned, a lot of the initiatives happen that were affected by COVID also immediately started a movement. So a lot of people from the NHS, for example, were doing free consultations, free therapy. I did some as well in Chile, Centro Pinda, if you still need some help. Centro Pinda, atención para personas en Latinoamérica que trabajen en salud gratuitamente. I said that in Spanish because it's for Latin American people. Even now, if you go to the NHS, you will find a place that says, do you want to volunteer with us? Some people volunteer cleaning the river because they just want a community to be more environmentally aware. Also, like Diego mentioned, everyone is welcome. So you can always find a home in your volunteer place, new friends, new people that share your same passion, and they are going to be able to teach you things about themselves, and you are going to teach them something as well, even if you don't notice. Also using their voice, the voice of the people that you are trying to connect with. Sometimes it can be through experience, like I mentioned with Catherine, that sometimes just by being there and showing that a woman can do that, or a person with disabilities can do that, or a person that has a severe mental health problem can be of help, it reflects that actually everyone can give something to another person, and you don't need to be in the best place of your life to do that. Also about how sometimes you feel at home when you're doing volunteer work, and it can help you to feel more accepted, that what you do is valid, that you have something to give to the world, that you're fulfilling a destiny, however you want to call it. And also making sure that the message actually gets to the other person. I think that's very important. So for example, one way of doing volunteer work every day of your life can be, if you want to learn sign language, that is not like learning, I don't know, Spanish if you ever go to South America. It's something that people need to use because it's the best way they have to communicate. And if you learn that, then you are helping other people to connect with you. And I think that's the beauty of volunteer work as well. So I just want to thank again, everyone. We had Maya, Emer, Catherine, we also had Diego, and we had Mari in the beginning. And like I always mention, we will keep doing the Tea Talks for the whole of August. Next time, on Tuesday at 7:30 UK time, we are going to be talking about sexual education. So I hope you're very excited to join that as well. If you have any questions for the speakers from today, you can ask on the chat or later on YouTube, and we hope to see you next Tuesday as well.